What's happening, my beautiful financiers in training? Welcome back to another episode of the Do.Different.Better show, where we break down wealth, wisdom, and money moves to help you secure that bag and your legacy. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, CEO of Social Impact Now and Managing Director of the Integrated Capital Fund. And today we're digging into a money topic that doesn't get nearly enough airtime, and that is employee ownership and profit sharing. That's right. Today we're talking about owning a piece of the pie, not just getting crumbs from the plate. So I'm super excited to talk about this topic. And here is why it actually matters and is important to you. Let me start here. Most of us were taught to be really good workers. Go to school, get a job, show up, get your check, and maybe put some away in a 401k if your employer even offers one. But what if I told you there's a way to be more than just a worker? What if you could actually be a co-owner of the company that you help build every single day? That's what employee ownership is all about. And when done right, it's not just about the money. It's about power, legacy, and long-term financial mobility and security for you and your family. So first, let's define what employee ownership actually is. I'm going to break this down in some really plain language that you can understand. Employee ownership means workers have a real stake in the business. And that can look like owning shares, getting a cut of the profits, owning a vote in big decisions, or all of the above, depending on what model that you choose. And we're going to get into some of those. It's not the same as just having a 401k with your company stock in it. This is ownership with intention, with structure, and with wealth building potential. So now, let me dig into what are some of the more common forms of employee ownership. There are a few different ways that employee ownership can be structured, but here are the big ones that you should know. But there is a wide range of everything in between. So know that you can get creative with these. The first one is an ESOP, which is an employee stock ownership plan. This is the most common model that you see in the United States. An ESOP is a retirement plan and ownership plan all rolled into one. And here is how it works. The company sets up a trust and contributes shares of stock into it. Employees earn shares over time, usually based on salary or years of service. And then when they leave or retire, they get paid out for their shares. ESOPs are heavily regulated, which means they're great for larger, profitable companies, but they are expensive to set up. So they're not always ideal for small companies. And when I use the term small companies, I'm using the definition as defined by the Small Business Administration. And the definition of a small business is defined by the Small Business Administration is a business, I believe the last time I checked was less than 100 employees. Yes, a small business is less than 100 employees and generating less than $7.5 million. So just understand when you hear things on the news, particularly anything that is reporting on federal data around small businesses, that's the definition that they're using for small business. Now, when they're talking about micro businesses, those are typically your Main Street businesses that maybe generate less than $5 million and more than likely have less than 10 employees. So just understand when I'm talking about small business, I'm using that definition as well. And then when I'm talking about micro businesses or smaller businesses, I will point that out and talk more specifically about what I'm talking about if I'm talking about a sub-genre of small businesses. But I digress. Number two, the second way that is a really good opportunity to think about how to get ownership in the company that you work for is becoming a worker owner cooperative. I did a whole show on cooperatives a couple of shows ago, so you can check that out where I go into really big, long detail. But I'm just going to keep this high level here for this conversation. And this is a really good, a personal favorite of mine. A worker owner co-op is a business that's owned and democratically governed by its employees. One worker, one vote. Everyone shares in the profits and the decision making. You see this model a lot in food co-ops and cleaning cooperatives, landscaping businesses, even breweries and bakeries. It's really powerful, it's people-centered, and it's rooted in shared accountability across the company because everyone has a decision, a vote in the decision making. The third one is employee ownership trust, or EOTs. This is a newer model that's gaining traction in the United States. An EOT is a legal trust that holds the business for the benefit of the employees. Think of it as a family trust, but you work for the family. It's often used as a succession tool by founders who want to retire and don't want to sell to private equity investors or outsiders. Then the last one is phantom stock or profit linked bonuses. This is a simpler version of ownership. You don't actually own stock, but your bonuses or profit sharing is tied to the company's financial performance. It's more common in startups and small businesses where owners want to reward performance without giving up control of the actual business or company. So now let's go into something a little bit more. Let's go into profit sharing. So, profit sharing often shows up with or without employee ownership. Profit sharing is exactly what it sounds like. You share in the company's profits. That could be a bonus check at the end of the year, a percentage of the contribution to your retirement account. It could also be quarterly payouts tied to the company's goals. The key here is that the more the business strives, the more the workers benefit. You are actually getting the benefit of the labor that you are putting into the company. So, why should working people even care about this? Why should this even matter to you? Well, it does matter if you're tired of working really hard without seeing any more in your living check and you're living check to check while the business continues to grow. Wishing you had a say in your company's future, then employee ownership or profit sharing might be a wealth move that you haven't considered. And this is something that you can actually talk to, especially if you're in a micro business or even a small business that's under that $7 million. You should think about talking with your coworkers about, hey, is there a road to ownership? Especially if you know that the owner may be looking to retire in 5 to 10 years. That gives you a lot of time to figure out where might there opportunities, whether it be converting the business into an employee-owned business, or if it's some other mechanism like profit sharing, or if it's converting it into some other kind of entity that is partially owned, like an ESOP, by the employees. So these are all things that can lead to having really open and transparent conversations, not only with the owner of the company, if that's a possibility, but even just germinating the idea of creating a profit sharing plan. That might be a good place to start. But instead of going from 0 to 60 and talking about employee conversion ownership. So starting with, hey, would it be possible for us to consider having a profit sharing plan for all of the employees? We work really hard. We really like the company. It'd be great for us to have a piece of the profits that we are actually contributing to with our labor. So let's now talk about the wealth building power of ownership. I'm going to hit you with some statistics. Don't get afraid. I'm not going to go all in, but according to the National Center for Employee Ownership, the average employee owner in an ESOP has 2.5 times more retirement wealth. They have more job stability. They have a higher median income than their non-owner peers. And worker co-ops, they've been shown to reduce wage gaps, increase job satisfaction, keep businesses rooted in their communities, even after the founder exists. So this really isn't just a theory. I'm coming at you with actual receipts of how this works and why it works well and why it's a great opportunity. So now I want to zoom out for a second and talk about community impact. What happens when employee ownership actually becomes a norm and not just a novelty? This is where we get to see more community wealth circulation. We get to see less business displacement and gentrification, especially with some of these iconic historical places in our communities that we don't want to go. Fewer founders are selling to Wall Street or private equity, and more are passing the torch to the workers who are in their communities. It's not just good for the individual, it's actually good for the whole ecosystem across the board. So you might be asking, okay, Elaine, so then why don't more businesses do it? And that is an amazing question. And I think there's a few reasons. One, there's a general lack of awareness. A lot of founders and workers don't even know that these models exist. Did you? But you know better because you're listening to the show. There's some misconceptions. Some business owners think that they're going to lose control or that it's too complicated. There's legal and financial hurdles. Like some models, like the ESOPs, can be expensive and complex. There's also the cultural shift. Ownership means sharing information like finances, and many businesses aren't used to that level of transparency. But the tide is changing, and more people are realizing that shared ownership isn't a compromise. It's actually really a competitive advantage because no one knows the business better than the actual workers, right? Because they're in it every single day. Now let's talk about who should be paying attention. This is really important for founders and small business owners thinking about succession or exit or even retention. This is also for employees who want to turn their jobs into an asset. It's great for investors and funders who want to build community wealth. And it's great for ecosystem builders. That's you, program directors, CDFIs, and local leaders. Basically, anyone who wants to do business better, this is a really great opportunity. So now let me go with the recap. Okay. Here's some takeaways. Now let's wrap up this segment with what everything that we've learned. So first, employee ownership means workers own a piece of the business through shares or co-ops or trust or structured payouts. We talked about profit sharing means workers benefit directly from the company's success. And that these models really build long-term wealth and they reduce inequality and keep businesses rooted in the community. So it's more than just a feel good story. It's really smart and a strategic move. And once again, I think it's really valuable to not necessarily think about this as something that will happen in a day or overnight. This is something where we can start the conversation of, hey, have you ever, as an employee, you go to the owner, if you have that kind of relationship, or maybe you go to upper management and say, hey, has the company ever thought about participating in profit sharing? Hey, as the company, what is the future plan of the company when the owner decides to retire? Many owners don't think that they'll ever retire, but the time comes, particularly when grandchildren come along or they have just different life goals. Maybe they have a partner that's come into their life late into their life. So they want to spend more time doing other things than just working in the company. So I encourage you as an employee listening to this show, don't think that this is a one and done conversation. If you go and have the conversation with the owner or upper management and it doesn't go anywhere, don't stop. Bring up the conversation maybe every 6 months to every year, because now what you're doing is you're planting a seed to event, especially if you like the company that you work for and you really don't have any intentions of wanting to leave. This is really making an investment to secure your own financial future is by setting it up that you're having these conversations. Also start having the conversation with other employees, especially those employees that are like-minded, who are on the same trajectory of wanting to really think about wanting more financial mobility, wanting to buy more, wanting to maybe buy investment property, or maybe they are looking to grow their retirement plan or their retirement fund. Those are ideal coworkers to talk to about, hey, let's build a team who might be interested in buying this company when the owner retires, especially if you know that horizon of when the owner might be looking to retire is within the next 10 years. That's a really good runway to start having the conversation. So that's it for this segment. In segment 2, we're going to go deeper into the real world pros and cons of these opportunities. What does it actually take to make shared ownership work? Who's doing it well? What's hard about it? and why it's still worth it. You're listening to the Do Different Better show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. And if you've ever wondered how to own your work, not just rent your time, then stay with me. We're just getting started. I'll see you back after the break. Welcome back, my beautiful financiers. This is the segment 2 of the Do Different Better show. And today we are talking about the real talk of employee ownership and profit sharing. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. And if you've ever asked yourself, what would it look like to own what I build? This is a great segment that is especially for you. So, in the first segment, I talked about the basics of what kinds of employee ownership opportunities are there, and I clearly defined what profit sharing is. So, now let's get into the good, and there is a lot of good. Employee ownership, when done right, does three really powerful things. Number one, it builds wealth for everyday working class people, which is amazing. And that's what we want. Number two, it creates stability for the business and the communities. If you are a part owner of the business, you're far less likely to go randomly quit on the business. And you're less likely to just randomly have an emotional reaction and just not show up to work, right? Because now you're invested in how well the business does. And then lastly, it supports legacy and succession planning that centers the people and the workers, not just the profits. So here now is the good. I'm going to break this down. One, wealth building for the workers. Studies from the National Center for Employee Ownership show that employee owners have over 2 times more retirement savings than their non-owner peers. That is not by chance. When workers share in the profits or the equity, they're far more likely to stay, they're far more likely to participate in decision making and make quality, thoughtful decisions, and they are more likely to build generational wealth. Think of it like this. You're not just clocking in for a check, you're clocking in for a stake in the company and a place at the decision-making table, or at least influencing the decision-making table, depending on the model. Number two, retention, productivity, and loyalty. Employee-owned businesses consistently report lower turnover, higher productivity, and a stronger company culture. Why, you may ask? Because when you've got skin in the game, you play differently. You take care of the customer better. You manage the waste of the business better. You problem solve instead of passing the buck, or what I like to say, shrug emoji, right? You're actually engaged in wanting to make sure that the company is as best suited and best placed as possible. You're coming up with more creative solutions than you probably ever would if you were just a worker. Number three, we start to create stronger local communities. Businesses are rooted in the people, which is also rooted in the place. That means more dollars circulating in the local economies. Jobs actually stay put. Owners who invest in schools and housing and community causes. This is especially powerful in rural areas and small towns and in under-resourced or underinvested neighborhoods that have seen capital extraction and decisions made from the outside versus the inside of the community. Number four, the succession with values are left intact. So I'm going to speak directly to the founders and the business owners for a moment. If you're getting older or you're just ready to move on, maybe you're just tired, selling to your employees is one of the most values aligned exits that you can possibly make. So for you, you get to keep your legacy intact. You get to protect your team, right? You get paid out at a fair wage, and you preserve the business you built with love. This is especially important for businesses that have been the community cornerstones, like local salons, auto repair shop, wellness centers, manufacturers, and professional services terms. A friend of mine, she owned a business for 20 years and she sold the business to her employees. Now, the process did take a while, but it was so great. And she's so happy that Now the people who help her run the business are now owning the business, and she can say with pride that she helped build that. And guess what? She's getting paid. So she actually financed instead of the worker owners actually having to go to a bank, because many of them weren't well positioned to be able to go get a bank loan for the amount of money that she sold the business. So she actually financed the sale of the business. So worst case scenarios, if they default on making their payments, she just gets the business back and she can decide if she wants to sell it onto the open market. And she's received all of those payments for the business up until then. So it's a win-win situation for her. But also, it's a win for the employees, because by having that seller financing, meaning she's the bank, basically, she's operating as the bank, they don't have to worry about credit scores. They don't have to worry about, right? And the way that she's getting paid is through the revenue of the business, which has already demonstrated that it is cash flowing because it is a 20-year-old business, and that she's put in all these contracts that are recurring revenue for the business. So it's a great win-win for everybody. But that's the lovely side. I'm always going to tell you the other side. Now, this isn't a fairy tale. Employee ownership isn't easy, but what actually is? Nothing's easy, right? There's a reason more businesses haven't done it so far. So let's get honest about the bad and complicated parts of this work. And I'm going to say complicated. It's not bad. Anything that you're going to do is going to have some level of complexity. So first, let's talk about the cost and complexity, especially for ESOPs. Remember, employee stock ownership plans. They are the most common and most regulated of employee ownership in the United States, but they're expensive to set up. We're talking about $80,000 to $200,000 in legal and valuation and accounting fees just to get started. And they require annual valuations, plan administration, and IRS filings. That's manageable for a company with 50 plus employees and steady profits, but it's tough for a smaller, maybe bootstrap, more community-based business or a Main Street business, maybe a restaurant or something like that. Number two, the cultural shift that is required. Ownership is more than just a title. It is a mindset, and that can be a hard shift. If your team isn't used to transparency, if it's not used to shared decision making, if it needs financial education, then ownership can feel very confusing and even very performative. It really takes time and intentional leadership to build an ownership culture that's real and sustainable. Something that I've done with my business is I try to instill ownership from day one. One, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with my business, but I want my staff to be ready for whatever happens. If I decide to do employee ownership, if I decide to do an ESOP, or if I decide to do profit sharing, I want them to have that from day one. So it's embedded in our work culture, this ownership model of you own the work that you do from the perspective of like the things that you do contribute to the bottom line. Your contribution to the bottom line directly shows up in your ability to get raises, right? Or other opportunities within the organization. So I commonly have my team work on budgets for their department so that they can understand how the money flows in and out of the business. It gives them a perspective of like, oh, wow. I remember that one of the first times I did this with my team, and I went through a profit and loss statement. I explained to them what a profit and loss statement was, and I walked them through our P&L for that particular time period. And I asked them, what do you see as the biggest expense? And of course, they said staffing. And they were all flabbergasted. They had no idea that they were the most expensive part of the company, more so than anything else. And I said, well, what do you think about that? And they're like, I had no idea that we were the most expensive line item in the budget. And I said, yes. So now what does that make you think about? And they said, it makes me think about, how do I spend my time? And am I spending time that's the most efficient and effective for the business? Exactly. So I encourage small business owners to really shift that thinking of them having to hold everything and offering just a little bit more transparency so that they can have ownership in how they actually contribute more to the company. But I digress. Number three, time to maturity. Employee ownership is a long game. Whether you're structuring a cooperative or launching profit sharing, the benefits don't show up overnight. it might take 2 to 5 years before employees really see the impact or actually make the conversion. And that's a challenge in culture addicted to quick wins, right? So I think I mentioned earlier, this isn't going to be something that happens overnight. And it might take some shifting in the mindset of employees, but it might also require shifting of the mindset of the owner. So know that this is a two-sided equation, and you want to be mindful of what is happening on each side of the equation. Number 4, it does not fix everything. Let me say this, employee ownership is a tool, not a cure-all. It doesn't guarantee equity. It doesn't automatically close any gender or racial wealth gaps. It doesn't magically make everyone collaborative. But when paired with strong values, good leadership, transparency, and clear communication, it can shift the game entirely, right? For everyone involved. So now let's talk about power and legacy potential. I want to zoom out for just a second. Shared ownership isn't just about wealth. It's about dignity. It's about turning labor into leverage. It's about saying, if I help build this, I should share in what it becomes. And when we talk about legacy in women-owned businesses, Black and brown, immigrant, rural communities, we need tools like this to level the playing field. Tools that pass ownership across generations, protect culture and community values, give workers a seat at the table and a piece of the pie. So now I'm going to give you some real world examples that hopefully can help you kind of see how this actually works. So the first one is Stone Mountain Company. They're located in Martha's Vineyard. Some of you might be listening to the show during Ink Week at Martha's Vineyard right now. Shout out. This is a 100% employee-owned design build firm. Workers own the firm through an ESOP and participate in open book management. Productivity and retention are off the charts. Second example, the Cheese Board Collective. This is in Berkeley, California. It's a beloved bakery and cheese shop owned and operated by its workers since the 1970s. That's how long this has been around. It's been around for a while. Every worker has an equal vote, equal pay, and profit is shared across the board. This one is an anonymous one, but it's a Black-owned skincare brand, actually right here in Minnesota. The founder is exploring an employee ownership trust that is in transition over the next 5 years, which would allow her team, mostly Black and brown women, to become the stewards of the business. She's starting with profit sharing and financial literacy training now, so they're ready when the time comes to then take over the business and be engaged in the ESOP program or the EOT program. So let's talk a little bit about why it even matters. Listen, every time a community-rooted business sells to an outside investors, we risk losing more than money. We lose relationships, we lose jobs, we lose identity, and we lose our community culture. Employee ownership is about protecting what's ours. It's about doing different and doing better. Haha, did you catch that? And with how we build, lead, and exit. So here's a recap and some takeaways that I want from this segment. Here's what I want you to remember. Employee ownership and profit sharing can build serious wealth, but they do require intention, planning, and cultural change. 2, it's not right for every business, but when it is right, they can transform lives and communities. Number 3, the best models match your values, your goals, and your team's capacity. It's never too early to start planning for shared ownership, whether you're a founder, you're an employee, or you're an ecosystem builder. Coming up in the final segment, we're going to get tactical. I'm going to show you exactly how to get started with employee ownership from feasibility to formation. Whether you're an owner, you're thinking about succession, or a worker dreaming of equity, I don't want you to go anywhere. This is the Do Different Better show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. And I just was made aware that some of y'all don't know that we actually have a YouTube channel. So check us out on YouTube. We are here trying to make wealth work for everyday people. So I want you to come and stay with me, and I will join you after the break. Welcome back to the Do.Different.Better show. You're rocking with your host, Elaine Rasmussen, and we are in segment 3 of our episode on employee ownership and profit sharing, aka how to build wealth with your team instead of off their backs. So far, we've covered what employee ownership is and why it matters. We've talked about the good and the not so simple parts of getting employee ownership or profit sharing going. Now we're going to get tactical. How do you actually get started? Whether you're a founder looking for a legacy exit, a worker ready to rise, or a community leader thinking system change, this is for you. And I'm so excited because this is where we roll our sleeves up and get to work. So, who is this for? Business owners thinking about transition or succession, workers who want more than just a paycheck, community builders who want to keep local businesses alive, funders and advisors and ecosystem stewards. Basically, anybody trying to do business different and better. So, now I'm going to hone in and talk to some specific audiences. So, I want you to buckle up and pull up your chair. If you're a business owner, especially one nearing retirement, and once again, I want you to think about this in like 10 to 15 year span. Maybe you're just getting ready to stop being the only one in charge. Employee ownership is one of the most powerful succession strategies that is out there for you. So here's how we get it done. Step 1, do a feasibility study. Before you promise anyone anything, you've got to assess whether employee ownership is viable for your business. So I wouldn't go and run out and telling your staff, hey, I'm looking at employee ownership, or I'm looking at it, putting an EOT together or an ESOP. This first part, you want to do quietly. So you want to assess, where is everybody at? This includes, you want to look at your own financials. You want to do a back of the envelope valuation of the company. You want to understand cash flow, and you also want to assess employee readiness. You don't need all the answers, but you do need a trusted advisor. There are organizations like Project Equity based in the Bay Area. They travel all over. There's ICA Group. They are both great organizations who I've worked with in the past with other founders that can really help you along this journey. I definitely encourage you to work with somebody who's done this before. Do not try to do this on your own. It is far too many pieces, and you want to be able to maintain a level of objectivity. And even if you know that you cannot do that, you're hyper focused on your subjectivity, meaning your own perspective. That's another reason why it's great to have somebody outside of you that is helping you navigate through these decisions, right? Or this pathway. Here's step 2. Choose your ownership path. So part of this is you need to get a better understanding of what are the different options and what seems to fit best for your goals, as well as the type of business that you have. There are different ways to transition to business depending on your goals, size, and values. ESOP is really great for companies that have 20 plus employees, strong profits, and over 5 years of operating history. Worker cooperatives are great for smaller teams, even 5 to 10 people who want to have democratic control. An employee ownership trust, or an EOT, is ideal for legacy-minded founders who want to pass the torch gradually without external buyers. Each has its own legal, tax, and cultural implications, so don't just pick blindly. And these organizations that I just talked about can help you walk through that and figure out what's going to be best for you. Step 3, prepare your people. Don't just drop a memo and expect people to buy in. Start the conversation early. Is this something that would be interesting to you? Bring your team into the vision. Provide training in financial literacy, cooperative ownership, or governance before the transition happens. Think of it like a premarital counseling for your business, for your new business marriage. And in some communities, like here in Minnesota, there are actually organizations who will do those trainings for you for free or for low cost. So definitely reach out. And a lot of these organizations like Project Equity might know of the organizations in your community or resources that they can connect you to in your city or state that can offer you some of these services that can guide through the conversation. Step 4, financing the transition. Ownership transfers don't always require employees to front the money. Often the business borrows the funds or uses seller financing. And I talked a little bit about that. CDFIs, mission aligned lenders, and state level EO loan funds are starting to set these kinds of things up to make them available to you. And if you're a funder or a philanthropic institution listening, you need to be paying attention to this. Investing in employee ownership transitions is community wealth building at its best, at the core of it, right? And that's what philanthropic organizations typically are set up to do. That's usually a part of their mission. Step 5, commit to a culture shift. Ownership without voice is just capitalism with a new hat. If you're going to do this, go down this route, commit to transparency, shared leadership, and a culture that supports stewardship and not just shares. So now, this is for employees that are going from worker to owner. I'm going to flip the script now. Maybe you're not the boss, you're on the team, and you're wondering, how do I go from working for this company to working with it as an owner? Here is your starter playbook. Step 1, understand the company's landscape. Is the owner nearing retirement? Has there been talk of selling or some kind of transition? Are you and your coworkers the backbone of the organization? These are indicators that a conversation about shared ownership might be timely, might be the right time, right place, right time. Number 2, start the conversation. And this is a delicate dance, but you can start by asking, has the company ever considered employee ownership? Would the leadership be open to a profit sharing program? Could we explore a bonus structure tied to company growth? You're not demanding, you're inquiring. You're planting the seed of just saying, tickling the brain a little bit. Hey, have you ever thought about this? Their response is going to give you a lot of information. Step 3, educate yourself and your peers. Before you organize a revolution, make sure you understand the terrain. Learn about worker cooperatives, employee trusts, basic business finance, and you can use resources like Democracy at Work Institute, thecooplaw.org, ownershipamerica.org. Then share what you learned. Host lunch and learns, put information on your Slack threads, do after hour Zoom calls with some teammates. But the movement starts with education. You do need to educate yourself. And if you know that you're not very financially savvy, that might be a place. But I know you're financially savvy because you're an avid subscriber and listener to the show. Step 4, build internal champions. Once again, change doesn't happen in a vacuum or with one person. Find the 2 to 3 coworkers who get it and start to build some shared language and some shared thinking about what it is that you actually want. Practice your pitch. If your company is serious about sustainability, they will listen. Once again, it may not be a conversion overnight. It might take some time, but this is why we are starting now. Step 5, be ready to work. Ownership means you can't just clock in and check out. Be ready to learn about governance, how the company is governed, financials, accountability, and power dynamics. You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be committed. Okay? Now I'm going to focus my comments on communities and ecosystem builders. Last but not least, let's talk about the folks who actually work on systems change. If you're in philanthropy or economic development or workforce development or business advising or in the government, Employee ownership should be a tool that's in your toolkit. St. Paul has created a big, huge cooperative movement here that's backed by our mayor. But here are the things that you can do. Identify those legacy businesses that are at risk of closure or sale in your community. Support feasibility studies. And when I say support, I mean pay for feasibility studies to be done for local communities to educate. So local communities to figure out what are the key businesses that are needed, what are the key businesses that are closing, and where might be the delta between those two, and how can your funds or resources be able to support slowing down, mitigating, or even preventing that from happening. Next, educate funders and policymakers about employee ownership models, right? That means finding people who have expertise in them and paying them to hold information sessions, go do community meetings, go to churches to host meetings, whatever that is, putting your resources to pay for people to come and do that education for the community. Next, integrate ownership education into your accelerators, boot camps, or technical assistance. Next, fund the ownership ready work. That means that legal costs money. So if you can have a legal organization that has a specialty in this, you are paying them directly to provide this as a free service to your community. That is a great thing to offer. Accounting, that's another expensive part of this. So if you can have people that, once again, you're paying for, that the community can take advantage to get services, accounting services, or HR systems, that is super, super helpful. Ownership isn't just a business model, it's an economic development strategy. If we want local economies to thrive, we've got to help people own the means of their livelihood. So now I want to get into specifically your go-to starter pack for learning and doing. So I've already talked about Project Equity. Great folks. I know them personally. They're at projectequity.org. There's the National Center for Employee Ownership, or NCEO. You can go to their website at nceo.org. There's the Democracy at Work Institute. I also know the folks over there. They're amazing. Their website is institute.coop, C-O-O-P. There's the ICA group. They are icagroup.org. There's Ownership America at ownershipamerica.org. And there's Seed Commons, a financial cooperative investing in shared worker co-ops. There's also a company, an organization here in Minnesota called Shared Cooperative Capital. They are actually a cooperative of cooperatives that lend to cooperatives. So say that 3 times. Okay. So now I want to get into the recap of today's show. Here's what we covered so far. Founders, you can exit your business in a way that honors your team and your values. Workers, you can become an owner and not just an employee. Communities, you can embed ownership into your economic development strategy. And all of us, we can shift what wealth looks like in this country together. I can't express enough how this is such an underutilized tool of even just thinking about the variety of different ways that this can be structured. If you haven't already listened to it, there's an episode on stock, issuing stock to your folks. There's all different kinds of incentives that you can get creative about. Just understand what both sides want to understand is the tax implications. So this is something that we didn't talk about in this show, but I think it's very important. Once you become an owner, you're now going to have a different individual tax structure. So as far as any dividends that you may receive, the ownership of the stock that you have once you sell it. So also you want to talk to, if you don't have an accountant that you're working with, the person who's doing your taxes, and maybe that's you might want to find somebody else to say, hey, I'm going down this track of participating in some kind of employee ownership, whether that's stocks or retirement plan. What might be the tax implications to me as a result? So you can also understand, how will this financially impact you. You're definitely going to get the upside of the financial benefit, but you want to understand what are the tax implications so that you can plan for that as well. And we've got lots of shows that I've talked about tax harvesting. I've talked about different ways that you can offset some of your tax liability, but also the professional. You want to get a professional that's going to deal with your particular specific situation, that's keeping your particular goals in mind, because everybody is sitting in a very different place. Your financial story and your financial situation is like your fingerprint. Everybody's got something different. So you definitely want to link up with a professional that's going to consider what's happening in your life and make sure that they're advising you on things to do that are going to be optimal for you. So now, here is my closing call to action for all of you listening to the show. First of all, if you've learned something today, I want you to share this episode with somebody in your network. Maybe you share this with the owner of the company that you work for. That's a great way to get the conversation going. And then maybe follow up with a lunch and say, "Hey, what did you think of Elaine's show? Tell me what came up for you. What were you thinking about? Did you learn something that you hadn't thought about?" But this is really great to send to your business owner who might be thinking about retirement, or a worker that's got some bigger dreams than just staying in the company, but they really love the company that they're in, or for a funder that's looking to identify some real impact. Employee ownership isn't just a trend. It's a transformation. And y'all know that that's what we're all about here at the Do Different Better show. We don't wait for the world to change. We change it ourselves. So until next time, I want you to keep doing better, different, and I want to see all y'all in the ownership circle. Now, if you haven't already, definitely make sure that you like and hit the subscribe button. I want you coming back. I don't want you to miss an episode, but you can also send me a DM if you've got questions about cooperative ownership. And if you check me out on YouTube, I actually have a downloadable that is just for you about employee ownership and all things that were talked about in this show. So you're not going to miss it. Don't forget to hit me up, like and subscribe on all the channels. I will see you on Instagram at Do Different with Elaine. I can't wait to see you next week, where we are going to be talking about what am I going to be talking about? I think we're going to be talking about succession planning. So I hope to see you then. I will see you next time, and when we do different better.